Many people claim that miracles, as we would commonly refer to, are simply not possible. This idea has been spreading in society today due to a feeling that God is not actively performing miracles for them, or that miracles are not scientifically possible, and should therefore be discounted as mythology. In this discussion, I'd like to address the idea that miracles are not possible because science rules them out based on what we know about the world and through personal experience. To paraphrase Scottish philosopher David Hume's work titled Of Miracles, a miracle is a violation of the laws of nature, and due to unchanging experiences that we've had, we know that these laws of nature cannot be rewritten. Therefore, since a miracle is a violation of these laws, miracles cannot happen. Hume's argument hinges on the belief that the laws of nature are as one has experienced in their life and are completely unchanging. The only way to change the laws of nature, as Hume describes them, is with a combination of eyewitness testimonies and/or experiments proving that nature works differently than expected. And even that lies on the assumption that every natural event has an unbreakable law that it must follow. This outlook fails to acknowledge that unpredictable things happen. This goes for anything from winning the lottery to the existence of the universe. There is no logical or scientific reasoning for matters of probability or the origins of life. This isn't just a belief from some scientists or philosophers, but some theists believe this as well. Influential German theist Rudolf Bultmann is known for his attempts to demythologize the New Testament to make it more palatable to modern thinking. Bultmann's theology hinged on the idea that the mythological is a stumbling block for many believers and non-believers in finding redemption through Christ. This belief seems to ignore parts of Scripture that seem to state outright that God works directly in the world and also has the power and track record of intervening in the world. There is no logical way to believe that Jesus is who he said he was and believe that he is not capable of performing miracles. This is based on who the Judeo-Christian God claims to be, an omnipotent, omnipresent, and benevolent being who controls the universe as we understand it. Science has the ability to prove only certain things about the world. This is because the scientific method is predicated on the idea that in order for something to be scientifically true, it must be able to be reproduced. This limitation is important when it comes to proving or disproving miracles, in that it is impossible to say whether or not miracles can happen in a scientific manner, at the very least. The only way to say one way or another that a miracle has or hasn't occurred is based on eyewitnesses and the legitimacy of those witnesses. This turns the question of are miracles possible from a scientific question to a historical question, where it must be answered through documents and reports from eyewitnesses. This is where the Gospels, along with letters from apostles, gather so much weight. Since they are typically seen within the same book, it can be tricky to remember that they were not written to be this way. They were written by their respective authors. When they were written by their respective authors, they were not intended to draw from each other. However, they end up recalling the same events as eyewitnesses, which would indicate legitimacy to the events in question. Another point that is made in reference to the possibility of miracles is that we currently know more about the way the world works than people living in biblical times. While this may be true from a scientific perspective, the scientific approach to the world is a relatively new way to interact with the world, and is just that, a different way to interact with the world. The things that has changed from biblical times is not how we perceive the world, but how we interact with it. This means that the people written of in the Bible did not walk around expecting miracles to happen left and right. The reason that miracles are written about in the first place is because they defy the way people perceive the world works. God, working through his people or on his own to produce wonders, was not an everyday occurrence, despite what it can feel like when reading the Bible, with there being few pages between the wonders that God can perform. The beliefs of Christianity hinge on the idea that God is active in the world. This is true from the beginning in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, with this being the first miracle, to the resurrection of Jesus, of which the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 14 through 15, "And if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith. More than that, we are found to be false witnesses about God, for we have testified about God, that he raised Christ from the dead. But he did not raise him, if in fact the dead are not raised." This is Paul's response to those who are cynical of the miracles, specifically raising the dead, within a Christian circle in the city of Corinth, which further shows us that people in these times did not have so little understanding of the laws of nature that when they hear of these laws being broken, they believe it without questioning the legitimacy of someone being raised from the dead. Someone being raised from the dead is one of many miracles that God has performed, and according to Paul, if he did not perform miracles like this, then all teachings on the nature of a personal God are misleading. Science's inability to explain the supernatural, along with many eyewitness testimonies to the supernatural, lead me to believe that the supernatural is not only possible, but probable. The testimony in the Bible is either the greatest coincidence of all time, or it is speaking truth in some way.